Today we have Heather here, and she owns and runs So Happy Jane. She's an independent yarn dyer providing artisan hand-dyed yarn for happy makers all over the world who love to knit, crochet, and weave. She has had a web-based business selling yarn online and also in person at pop-up shops and industry shows. So hi Heather, how are you?
Hi Katie, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. So tell me a little bit about what led you into the business of yarn dyeing.
When my youngest daughter, who just turned 13 on Sunday, was a little girl, I think she was about 2. We had a winter where she just kept getting sick over and over, and we were stuck at home and couldn't go anywhere. And I kept seeing all of these beautiful hand knit projects that my friends were making, and like diaper covers. I don't know if you ever got into the knitted diaper covers.
I wasn't going to spend $100 for them, so I self-taught.
That's right. And you figure out how to do it. So we were stuck at home, and I had been really into sewing, but I had quickly figured out that it wasn't working for me to be away from my family in another room sewing. And also you can't take sewing to the park, you can't take sewing anywhere. But I still wanted to be doing something with my hands. So I figured out how to knit, and that was like 11 years ago. And I fell completely in love with the process of texture and color and combining patterns. And then about it was actually about 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to learn how to dye yarn myself. And I just started experimenting with it. And then I took a couple of classes, and then people started asking for it. And the first thing that happened was a yarn shop that used to be in Meridian asked me to provide them with yarn in their shop. And then I suddenly had like 5 wholesale accounts. And so I started a website, and it just kind of accidentally exploded. I'm a piano and voice teacher by trade. I really was not planning to become a yarn dyer, but that's where my path has led.
That's the best part about it, though, is like you've made your passion into something that you can help provide for your family. So that's super awesome. I see in the background, it's a lot of solids. Has that the way the world has turned now? Because when I was doing it, like knitting the diaper covers, it was a lot of variegated. And so now I've seen it's kind of shifted over to solids now. Is that the way it's going?
I don't know. I mean, I still have quite a few colorways that have lots of texture in them. The reason you see solids is because they're the slowest ones to sell. Aww. And all my inventory is really super low. So usually what happens is people will ask me to help them put together like a solid and a variegated colorway. I'm trying to figure out how this camera works.
Yeah, no, I can see it. So I can see it's a little bit of variegated, just different, not a pure solid.
Right. One of the things that's super popular right now is speckled colorways.
I've seen those.
With
they're
lots
really
of
pretty knit up.
Yeah. So, and the other thing that's become really popular is mohair. So I'm wearing a scarf that I knit for my mom that uses mohair held together with another yarn that has some silk and cashmere in it, and it's super, super soft. I'm supposed to mail it to her, but I haven't done it yet.
I love it. So what do you think your unique skills are that helped you become successful in this business?
Well, it certainly helped that I had run a successful business before this. So I went into it with my eyes wide open about, first of all, how much work it was going to be. And second of all, putting into place practices that could help me to be successful. So that was really helpful. But I think the thing that I'm the best at is working with customers to find their perfect thing to make their projects exactly how they want them to be. And I really love working with people. So yeah, that's helpful a lot.
It can be very specific, just like with sewing. If if like I went and try to make this with cotton, it's not going to happen. You have to use knit, so it's the same thing with yarn. If you pick a different size and try to meet that gauge, that's not going to happen. It's going to look funny. So that's, you know,
Right.
I'm a lazy one. Like I've never knit up the gauge swatches and I just like eyeball it. Like, yep, that'll work.
Good enough.
So what's your favorite memory related to this business?
Almost all my happiest memories are relating to working with other people, and you know, I love having pop-up shops at my studio and having people come. But my favorite memory is two friends who live like 1,000 miles apart from each other. One lives in Idaho and one lives in um, Western Oregon. So they're really good friends, but they live super far apart, and they both order yarn from me, and then they knit their projects as little knit-alongs together.
That's so
And
fun.
at the last show that I was at in Portland, one of the ladies came and she brought her sweater and her shawl that she had knit that were twin partners with her best friend that lives in Idaho. So
That's
that was
awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah. See, and now they can get on Zoom and just like knit together and chat and have their little knit alongs with, you know, that would be super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's a common myth about your industry and can you debunk it for everybody?
A common myth is that only old people knit and crochet. That is not true.
No.
And even though I'm older than I was when I started, there is a huge market for young people getting interested in fiber arts, and it's fun for everyone. It's super meditative and relaxing, and it's just a fun portable thing that you can take everywhere you go. So if you're stuck on a bus, if you're stuck in a piano lesson waiting room, if you're stuck at the dentist's office, you can be doing something creative. So people of all ages and all ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds love to knit and crochet.
I totally agree. So when I graduated and started working at ISP, I had the youngest one on our team was in her late 20s and she's like, I'm knitting. And I look at her and I'm like, I knit too. Let's be friends.
Right.
Now, decades apart, but we were able to meet up together, you know, at Panera, and we knit with some other women, and just it's a way to get out of your house and have relations with other people who have the same interests, and you guys can see the different creativities that you have because new to knitting, they're not the same, not a single one. Even if you have the same yarn and the same colorway, it's not the same, and that's what I love. Is that, you know, it can be totally different. So that's awesome.
It's very personal, and it's a really wonderful way to connect with other people too, like you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, it totally is. So if you were in my shoes and could ask yourself anything regarding your business, what would it be?
Why should I spend $20 to $30 on a hand-dyed skein of yarn when I can walk into Michael's or Joann Fabrics and buy one for $5?
Yep. So why? Tell us why. I know why.
Well, when I first started knitting, I had no money. And so there, like I mentioned earlier, there is a place in the fiber arts for every budget. And budget yarns absolutely have their place. I knit with them too. I learned to knit with them. But as soon as I started knitting with wool yarns, merino wool, and realizing that there are soft yarns that you can put next to your skin that aren't itchy and that feel good in your hands, you start to realize that number one, it's a very pleasurable experience while you're knitting because it feels good. And number two, your project is going to look so much nicer in the end when you're done. You can shape it and block it into specific ways, and it's so accessible. You don't have to hand wash and hand dry all the yarn anymore. You can get yarns that you can knit a pair of socks and throw them right into the washing machine. So I feel like it's really worth it for the all-around experience to, you know, use, of course, live on a budget. I live on a budget. I think it's important to think carefully about the things that you purchase and know where they come from, and understand that you're supporting a lot of different people, from farmers to the mills to the dyer to, you know, maybe a yarn shop, maybe you buy it directly from a website, but you're supporting all of those people in that chain real people like me who
Exactly.
really appreciate this. So
Yeah, no, I learned, with the Lions brand yarn, and then you try to put it on your kid because it was cloth diaper. So, I use it for the covers
yeah,
and you put it on him, and he's my sensory one. So he's itching and not
yeah,
comfortable. And then it was BFL, and I was like, oh, this stuff is amazing. I want to cuddle with it. And it's just,
yeah.
there is a vast difference in it. And it does support, the hand artisans and the mill, like you said, and the people just everybody. So I love that. I love that. So how can the viewers right now support you during this time?
Well, I have a website, and you can follow me on social media. So Happy Jane on Instagram, Facebook, all the places, and that's my website also. So you can purchase yarn through there. But also, if you just want to find out some more about knitting, you can get in touch with me, and I'm happy to enable you to learn more about knitting and crocheting. I have lots of resources to help beginners get started. And tomorrow we're doing a big Zoom knitting group where we're maybe up, I don't know how many people will show up, but I'm excited to just get together with people from all over the world who love knitting and crochet, whether they're using my yarn or not. So
Yeah.
we can talk about yarn because that's what we all love.
Yes, and sharing the patterns and the resources, and where did you get that? That's really cool. Or that's
Yeah.
what it is. That's what I'm trying to do here, is just share.
Have a connection with people that love the things that you love.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's where everybody wants to congregate, is with other people who are like-minded like them. So, if I can enable somebody else to get into your group who loves knitting, that they didn't know you were a resource before, I've met my goal, right? So
yeah.
I love that. So, and then you've mentioned your website. So let's move on to your favorite thing about the Treasure Valley.
My favorite thing about the Treasure Valley is all of the opportunities to go outside in beautiful places.
I love that too. And I wish it would stop raining already.
Yeah.
I want to.
Although right now I'm actually kind of thankful for the rain because then I feel a little more peaceful being stuck inside.
Yes, this is true. This is true. It's like winter again. Okay, well, we know we need to be inside. It's cold out there. I don't want to go out there. It did suck on the good days when you're looking at the sunshine going, oh man, I want to be
We
out
can't
there.
take kids to the park or anything.
No, I know. And they know it. And so they're just like, Mom,
Yeah.
where
What
you
are we supposed to do? What can we do? You can teach them to knit.
yeah, you can give me a Roblox profile. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time. It was super awesome getting to chat with you, and I'll have to see some more of your yarns when we can actually get together again. And I have
Yes.
to. So, what kind of different yarns do you have? Are you strictly like blends, or do you have 100% wools or silks, or?
I actually have a few different kinds of yarn. I have mostly what you see behind me is sock yarn, yarn that we call it sock yarn, but hardcore knitters knit sweaters out of sock yarn. So
Yep.
um,
And it takes.
this is a this is a merino wool that has some nylon content in it, so that you can. I'm not catching on to this directional thing here.
Just right in front of you. I totally see it, like the deep purples and then the lighter purples, and yeah.
So you can use this for knitting socks, or you can use it for knitting sweaters, or people knit shawls. A lot of times we'll knit shawls with this. So this is a merino blend. And then the yarn that I'm wearing is a silk and cashmere and merino, and also mohair and silk. So it's got that double hit of silk in it.
Squishiness.
And I just started dyeing some non-washable Highland wool that comes from Peru. So that will be for sweaters. That can also be felted for like slippers or diaper covers. I'm way past the phase of needing diaper covers, but
I've moved on to socks because I know my kids won't appreciate what I make for them. So I'm like, I'll just make all my own socks then.
yep, that's it. I am a very selfish knitter.
Yeah.
I only knit for me because I'm the one who appreciates it. So I did knit this for my mother and I've knit for my dad. But for the most part, a lot of merino.
Yeah, and that's soft and squishy, and I love merino. So is that one that you get from Peru? Is it like the 100% pure wool? Does it feel like that? Because isn't that the one that have a business?
I don't know if they're still in business or not, but I feel like I haven't seen them for a while. But it is, I think it's more along the lines of a traditional wool that is really good for knitting color work because it has a little bit of stickiness to it. So you can knit color work with it, or you can also knit it and then do what's called steeking, which is cutting your yarn, cutting your project. And so you can knit a cardigan, but knit it in a circle so it's a little less work, and then you just cut. So that kind of yarn has a little bit more memory and a little more grip to it. So some people might refer to it as a little more itchy, but it serves a very specific function.
Okay. Yeah, as they all do.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. Well, I appreciate your time. I love seeing all the yarns, and I miss the squishies. Mine are all in a trunk right now where I'm like not seeing it because all my patterns are on the top and they're buried in the bottom, and I need to break them out.
Yeah. Break them out. Get your needles out. Now's the perfect time to resurrect your knitting.
I know it. I know it. And then I'll look at all the projects. I'll be like, oh, shoot.
Yeah. You might be frogging quite a few things and then starting over.
Yes. Quite a few. Most definitely.